All right, it's 6 o'clock and we know that we have some parents and others joining us, but we want to welcome you today to our informational meeting on the virtual academy. Uh, Last we met, we promised that if we had additional information that we would uh, set another meeting. And so that's what this meeting is. We have more information that we'd like to share with you. And also we want to talk about providing additional time for parents to make a decision. Before we actually get started, I'd like to thank our board president who's here with us today, Dr. Gwen Dowdy Rogers. And we really appreciate her support and everything that she does in the city and for our district. So thank you for being here today. And with that being said, I'd like to now introduce our Director of Alternative Programs, queen of many things, but we're so fortunate to have such a wonderful person who's so caring and attentive and detail-oriented to be part of our team. So with that, I'd like to introduce Angela Ortiz. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today and spending a little bit of time with us so that we can give you the most up-to-date information so that you can make the best choice for your child for the new school year. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our support team, and they're going to share some information on how we can go ahead and make sure that we hear from you with your questions. And I'm going to ask for the next slide to come up, please. And we're going to share some info on translation and some questions and answers.
Thank you. I'll just be switching to Spanish so I can let our Spanish speakers know that we do have interpretation for them available. Buenas tardes, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros en nuestra reunión. Si tenemos interpretación disponible para ustedes, solamente va a ir al icono del globo que está abajo de la pantalla de Zoom y ahí va a hacerle clic y ahí va a seleccionar Spanish para español y luego Mute Original Audio para que no se oigan los dos idiomas. Vamos a poner las instrucciones en el chat también, pero si necesita más apoyo con eso, por favor, mándanos un chat y les podemos ayudar. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
The next slide, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's meeting. I just wanted to touch on a few points for tonight. During tonight's presentation, we ask that you please provide any questions that you may have into our chat. We also have live questions and answers following tonight's presentation. For those live questions and answers, we ask that you, again, provide any of those questions inside of the chat or you feature in your Zoom. Next slide, please. For any questions that you may have regarding your students, any direct questions that you may have, please send a text message to the number provided. Please include your question, your student's name and their school, as well as a callback number. Next slide, please.
So,
and now hand it back over to Ms.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, if you have any specific questions about your child, to honor their privacy, we do ask that that you send us a text message, and we'll make sure that the appropriate district staff gets back to you with your concern or your question. So, as far as today's agenda, we have our welcome and our introduction. And we will be briefly going over the virtual academy options, since at the last town hall meeting, we did go over those pretty extensively. Those options haven't changed. We do have additional information, but that'll all be shared. Mr. Buckner is going to be providing you with an enrollment update, as well as the transfer process update. And then, of course, at the end, if there are any questions, please feel free to let us know so that we can clear up any questions or misconceptions or circumstances that you might have. Next slide, please. And so again, our objective is to share the most updated information on the Virtual Academy and the choices and processes for the new school year, so that you can make the most informed decision for your family for the new school year. Next slide, please. Just wanted to really quick remind you of why we are doing the virtual academy. We know that many families still want the virtual option as a choice for next school year. And with the sunsetting of SB 98, which was the law that allowed us to provide distance learning to your students for the school year, for this current school year, that expires on June 30th. And so we wanted to make sure that we could provide you with additional options that you felt met the needs of your family. And the virtual academy through independent studies is the way that we're able to do that. Next slide, please. And so briefly, again, we have our virtual academy options. When you go into the Aries Parent Portal and you choose, they are actually numbered 1, 2, and 3 in this order. So option number 1 is the most like what we are currently doing with distance learning, and that is offered for TK through 8th grade, and it will be every single day. Your child will be on with a teacher with direct instruction and guidance, as well as individual and small group support. And so that's option 1. Option 2 is the K-12 online virtual learning. So this is going to be provided with Admentum, which is an online curriculum where your child will be meeting every day with a teacher, but it'll be less structured, and there is more variety for your child to be able to move through the program quicker if they so choose. And then we have the TK through 12 option, which is our traditional independent studies model. And that, because of new law coming up, that might look a little bit different. And so that more than likely will be some sort of component where there will be daily interaction with a teacher because of the new law that the governor is proposing. But currently, there is a minimum of meeting with 1 time a week with your teacher where they provide instruction, assignments, your child submits those assignments during that meeting. But there's opportunities for additional tutoring and small group and individualized support with that if your child so chooses. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand this off to Dr. Funches.
Thank you, Angela. Marcus Funches here, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. I wanted to thank our Student Services team under Dr. Rodriguez's leadership for the information provided here and the awesome work putting together our virtual academy options. And so I wanted to spend just a few moments drawing everyone's attention to the middle of the sample schedule. And this is a sample schedule of what the instructional day might look like for our scholars as they work with our educators. So if you look on the first column, it's highlighted in yellow for the TK through 8 teacher-led virtual academy. Right now, the sample schedule demonstrates or shows 3 hours of direct instruction. That means 3 hours of screen time. That means 3 hours of working directly with an educator. And then you'd see there 2 hours of extra support, meaning there will be time for small group support, individual support as needed, or whatever that might look like, determined by the educator. And then it looks like as well, what we're proposing is 1 hour for educators to work for or parents or students that may need questions answered or extra support in that type of fashion. So that's the proposed sample schedule right now that we're working on for the TK through 8 teacher-led virtual academy portion. And then if you transition over to the light green or mint color, if you will, for the K through 12 online virtual program using Admentum, less direct instruction because of the online program, but having at least 2 hours interfacing with a teacher, and then 3 hours of monitoring student progress per day from that educator. and what that might look like in terms of giving support, what that might look like in terms of answering questions that a student may need for his asynchronous work or work away from interfacing with the teacher, or independent work will be part of that. And then also the 1 hour of office time for supporting parents and families for anything that they might need. And then finally, that third option there that you see in the light blue for the traditional independent studies, if you look at the schedule piece right there, that is a meeting or individual meeting. Right now, it's once a week, but just like Angela stated, there might be some changes coming down from the state that we need to adjust or pivot to, but that's how it's set up right now in this proposed schedule. And then the educator as well, creating lessons for your individuals, for individual scholars to make sure that they work on throughout the week. And then the educator also monitoring student progress and providing support as needed. So that's our proposed schedule right now. That's what support and instruction will probably look like for those three different options for the virtual academy. Thank you.
And then the next slide is the exact same schedule, but in Spanish for our families.
Is there a way to see the schedule in English online?
I don't believe so at this time, no.
We'll try to get that up as soon as possible. Right now, it's just a sample. We'll see if we can make that available, okay? Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. And this, I'm going to introduce our Director of Enrollment and Placement Services, Mr. Leonard Buckner.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for this update. I will just briefly discuss and talk about our enrollment process. We have extended the selection window deadline until June 6, 2021. Again, that's June 6. So that is this Sunday coming up. So parents, as we're providing you more information now, you have a little bit more time to make a selection on if you desire the virtual academy option and which one you desire. Also, that's still through Aries Parent Portal. So you would go in there and make your selection. And if you have already made a selection and you desire to change it, you can go into the Aries Parent Portal again and push the little pencil, the edit button, and highlight your choice and delete it, or backspace if you will, hit save. And it will be blank in the selection area, meaning that you desire your student to return to in-person learning. Some of the provisions that have been made, we've been listening to our parents, and some of the feedback was that they desire to their child to have still have a spot in their traditional in-person learning school. And so we've made some provisions and are currently working on provisions to allow students that select the virtual academy to remain in their school, in their projected school for the 21-22 school year, as well as programs, whether it be magnet or lottery schools or IB or other programming programs around that area, to remain there from August 4th through June 2nd, 2022. So this means at any time, if the student decides to, or the parents decide to move the student back from virtual academy to in-person learning, that student space will remain at that school, their projected school, and their program up through this year, from August 4th, 2021 to June 2nd, 2022. Next slide.
Can we go back 1 second, Mr. Buckner? We want to make sure here we're not doing hybrid. So your student, if you choose virtual, will be in virtual. The slot that they occupied at the magnet school or whatever their home school was prior to the pandemic will be saved for them, but they're should they choose to come out of the virtual academy and go back to their school, their space will be available for them to return. They're not going to be enrolled and actually taking classes in the virtual and at their school. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Their space will be held should they choose to return back to the brick and mortar campus.
Next slide. Again, around transferring, the parent or guardian wants their scholar to transfer, same, they'll be able to do that through from August 4th through June 2nd. Also, we continue to encourage our families, if you're desiring a transfer, that we transfer during our natural transition times, the end of the quarter or end of the semester. And that's all I have to share, just trying to make sure that we informing the parents that we've heard the concerns, and so we've made these provisions to help meet the need of our students for this one academic year, August 4th, 2021 through June 2nd, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckner. Next slide, please. And so if you have any other questions, after the town hall meeting is over, here are Josie Chambers is a program specialist, as well as Robin Eberhardt. Courtney Weber is the coordinator for specialized programs. My name is Angela Urquides, and Mr. Leonard Buckner is the director of enrollment and placement services. These are our emails and our phone numbers, and we'll make sure to get back to you or point you in the direction of somebody who will get back to you with your answer. Next slide, please.
And to add to that, Angela, let's go back to the virtual slide. There you go. So we are in process of appointing a principal and vice principal to the virtual academy. And so that information will be sent out and be posted on our district website. Dr. Funches and HR will be announcing the principal and vice principal tomorrow. And so you will have a point person if you have any questions regarding the virtual school, what it looks like, and those questions, and you'll have somebody that'll be full-time dedicated to the virtual academy.
Next slide, please.
Can I just make a quick correction? Inadvertently, we put August 4th. The first day of school, the year will be August 2nd through June 2nd. Again, that's August 2nd through June 2nd, August 2nd, 2021 through June 2nd, 2022. So I apologize for that error.
So I believe Kat or Michelle or Miriam.
Yes, we will be taking questions now, and there are a few questions in the chat. And if anyone would like to say their question verbally, we do ask that you raise your virtual hand, or you can let us know in the chat and we can call on you. We can get started on a couple of the chat questions that there were a couple questions about one of the slides that referred to a location. There was a parent that asked, what does the location refer to?
So we will have an actual office for the virtual school. And so that's where we will house our principal, vice principal, and staff members that will be there on a regular interval. And so that's what that's referring to.
Thank you. And then there's a couple questions about school starting, but we cleared that up. The next one, will it be the same teacher if we decide virtual first, then want them to go back to school in person?
So it will not be the same teacher. There is teachers that are at the school site, and there's teachers that are in the virtual academy. They're not the same teachers. So if your student starts in the virtual academy and then transitions to their home school, they will have a different teacher.
Thank you. What is the end of quarter or semester?
End of the quarter is within the first 10 weeks of school. So generally that's around progress report time. So typically that's August, September, October, early November, late October. So it's I would say, venture to say, it's probably the last week of October. So that's when those transitions, and it's to benefit your student. You don't want your student to go in and then not have a grade at their new campus. So it just makes it makes it easier for the students to maintain their good grades.
Thank you. How will high school academies such as the Teaching Academy and Arroyo Valley High School transition to the virtual academy? And then there's a couple more questions, so we can start with that one.
So the virtual academy does not have pathways. The virtual academy is just your very basic college prep type of classes for graduation. All of our academies have been are certified at their actual schools. And so as this virtual school is just really starting this year, it does not have the capacity to house pathways. And so we are working with the new principal to develop opportunities for students to be concurrently enrolled at our community college. So if there are classes that students want to take at the community college that could help them with their pathway or help them with additional electives, we'll do that. IB is also an accredited program that is associated and only offered at Cajon and at Arroyo Valley High School. The virtual program will offer college preparatory courses and also offers honors level courses, but will not offer IB because it requires an actual certification for the teacher as well as for the program as a whole. Those programs are certified through through International Baccalaureate out of Switzerland. And at this time, the Virtual Academy will not have those in place.
Thank you. Ms. Angie.
We have a hand raised at this time.
Ms. Sanchez, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Are the virtual academy and the independent study, will they take students that are special needs? I have a son that will be going into 8th grade who's autistic and is currently at Golden Valley Middle School in the special needs class with Mr. Mendoza. So would his needs be taken care of with the virtual academy or the independent study?
Great question. Any student that applies for the virtual academy, they do go through a process. It's an intake process, and any special education student must have an IEP conducted prior to their placement at the virtual school. So at that point, the IEP team will determine whether or not the student's needs can be met through the virtual environment. And so those placements are done individually based on a team decision.
I'm sorry, I have one more part to that question. So then in the case that his needs couldn't be met, the only other option would be to return back to traditional school?
With an IEP, there's lots of flexibility as far as how students can be accommodated. I don't want to misspeak. So what we can do is, text your information and we'll have Dr. Lundy, the special education director, talk with you individually to see what type of needs your student requires, to see if he or she can be accommodated at the new school.
Okay, and then text it where, in the chat, or call you guys?
We have, if we can have our team put the number for text messages, you can actually text to a phone number, and we ask that you include your phone number, your student name, and their school and your question, and then we will route that to the special education department for them to return the call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was the only hand, and we still have a few more questions in the chat. Dr. Rodriguez, do you want me to continue? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If they are in the dual program, Spanish and English, will virtual be provided also in dual?
So depending on the number of students who are in dual programs will determine whether we can offer it. And so at present, we have students in every grade level. We're waiting till next Monday to run our final report to find out which special programs our students are enrolled in so that we can determine staffing. If we have a healthy cohort of students, then we can offer the program. And a healthy, group is subjective, but we're looking at 15 to 20 kids per grade level to be able to offer the program. So there is likelihood that we can offer that in virtual, but we still need to evaluate the student enrollment to determine what type of programs we'll have in place.
Someone's asking which day is minimum day for Palm.
I went ahead and answered that question already. I put it in the chat, Kat, all this week until the last day of school.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Will the virtual academy classes coincide with what is being taught in real time at the schools in regards to the magnet programs? So program students aren't behind when they decide to go back in person.
So all of our classes follow a scope and sequence that has been outlined by the district. And so it tells teachers what standards need to be taught at certain months or quarters in the school year. And so there is an expectation that all teachers follow that scope and sequence. There may be different materials or different lessons to get that information to students. That's something that is up for our teachers to decide how they're going to provide that instruction. But there is that scope so that when students transition, they will be as close to possible with other schools. This was done even prior to the pandemic because we do have students that are transient that may be homeless or have other special needs. And so we want to make sure that all schools are in certain grades or on all grades are within probably a few days to a week of each other. They may not necessarily be online to the magnet because the magnet, some of them are accelerated, some of them are unique as far as like environmental safety or things of that nature. The program at the Virtual Academy is standards driven, so they may not necessarily be infused with the magnet information, but as far as their education, they will have education that is comparable to what is going on in the regular schools. You have a hand up too, Kathleen.
Thank you. And that's actually Ms. Kathleen Valdez. Go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
So I had a question about middle school. I know you were saying special programs. Does that include like electives, music, art, and things like that? And then the same thing for elementary school. I know some elementary schools, they start music in 4th grade. So will they be able to pick out an instrument for Virtual Academy? Or if we have a middle school student who's already in music and already has their instrument, will they be able to continue music as they are in Virtual Academy? I don't know if that was considered as part of the special programs or if that's something different. Thank you.
That's a good question. So at this point in time, we need to know how many students are involved in a music program in order to continue it and actually assign a music teacher to the virtual school. So we are working with the homeschool to see if we can provide those elective courses, especially at the elementary school, so that kids can continue to participate. Our goal, and we think that we deliver quality education at our brick and mortar schools, at our physical schools. And so our hope is that parents feel more comfortable and will send their children to our regular campuses, but we understand that there may be, family issues and, parent jobs that, you don't want to put them in a situation where they might make other people sick. So we're working through that. But at this point in time, I can't say with a definite yes. We have to evaluate to see how many students are in a program like that in order for us to continue it. Good question.
So our next question is, how long before we know until we have been enrolled into the academy, and do you still offer IB classes?
Thank you, Michelle. The virtual academy will not offer IB classes. And the reason for that is that IB is attached to a school. It's attached to Cajon and attached to Arroyo Valley High School. And there is an accreditation process that takes place in order for those schools to offer it. It takes many years to prepare a school to offer those programs. And so we will offer honors level courses within the virtual academy. After the window closes, within the scope of the summer, you will be contacted by a representative from the virtual school for an intake. And at that point, they will be evaluated. They will look at the classes that are necessary, whether you're a middle school or high school student, to make sure that your student is on track for graduation, and to evaluate what classes they will need in order to graduate on time. So you will know whether they're actually going to be enrolled in the virtual academy within the next month or so.
Okay, our next question is, are you going to send a letter about going back to school?
So there will be something going out from our communications department welcoming our students back to school. As many of you may or may not know, we have a brand new superintendent that started today. And so that is going to be part of his welcoming, is to get everybody ready for coming back to in-person school. We're really excited that we have our new superintendent on board, Mr. Doc Irwin, who has some great experiences, and we're just really excited and fortunate to have a leader of his caliber working with this in our district. So yes, there will be letters being sent out for many of the activities that are leading up to back to school. And you should also be expecting a letter from the school if you choose to go back to regular school. You'll get something from the principal of your campus to let them know that they're excited and eagerly waiting for your student.
Okay, we have a raised hand. Go ahead.
Ms. Diaz, you can go ahead and unmute, ask your question.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Buenas
Good
tardes.
afternoon.
Mi pregunta
Yo
es,
soy el intérprete.
ahorita
puedo
escuché, no sé si
interpretar.
escuché bien, que o sea, si hay muchos niños que pueden, hacen lo virtual, o sea, mi pregunta es, mi niña es especial. Es especial mi niña. Entonces, si no hay muchos niños especiales en virtual, que mi niña sí puede tomar la clase virtual, porque yo la quiero virtual.
Yeah, I have a child who has special needs. I would like her to take virtual classes if that be possible.
So I'll answer in Spanish and then I'll answer in English. Estudiantes que están en educación especial tendrán una junta, un IEP, para saber si la escuela virtual es lo mejor para el estudiante. No sabemos cuántos estudiantes, en qué es la de necesidad para los alumnos que reciben esos servicios. Así tenemos que saber cuántos estudiantes van a escoger el académica virtual para saber si podemos tener maestros para esos alumnos. Así, pero cada situación, situación con los alumnos es diferente. Así vamos a tener que tener una junta, una IEP, para saber si es lo mejor para su alumno. So the question was,
porque yo porque yo en lo personal, pues yo no quiero arriesgarla, yo no quiero mandarla.
Sí, eso se te...
Ujú, porque ahora que mi hija está, que empezó la pandemia en marzo, mi hija desde que llegó a casa no se me ha enfermado para nada.
Yeah.
Ajá, entonces yo no quiero arriesgarla a que se me vaya a enfermar.
So the question was, does the special education programming, is it dependent on the number of students? So the answer is that each student who qualifies for special education must have an IEP prior to their placement to determine whether that is the best placement for the student. Now we know that we will have special education students enrolled in our virtual academy. There may be some special consideration for students who are in mod severe, and that's something that we're working closely with the special education department. Mom says that she wants to keep her child at home and through the virtual school because they haven't gotten sick at all since March, and so she doesn't want to put her at risk by having her go back to school because she hasn't been sick at all.
Así es.
Gracias, señora, por su pregunta.
Ajá, esa es mi pregunta. Muchas gracias.
De nada, tenga buen día.
Igualmente, gracias.
Okay, our next question is, how do I enroll my child in virtual academy?
You go to the Aries portal, and if you have any questions or need some help on how to do that, go ahead and text us, and we'll have somebody call you and walk you through that process. But you will make your selection for Virtual Academy through the Aries Parent Portal.
The next question is, when is the last day to sign my child up for the Virtual Academy?
The last day to sign up for the Virtual Academy will be Sunday, June the 6th.
Is there going to be a town hall for specific schools?
All schools should have had a town hall within the last 2 weeks. And so you might want to look on the school's website. Often we've asked them to put their PowerPoint as well as any videos from those town halls and post them either on their own YouTube channel or on their school webpage so that parents are able to refer to it. There may be a few campuses that still need to do their town hall this week, but the majority of them should have already been completed.
Will you send out date reminders for windows to transfer back to in-person?
Parents can make that determination of whether they want their child to transfer at any time. And during that time where you meet with the administrator, they will let you know when would be the best time for your student to transition. We need to be able to meet with every student individually. So there isn't going to be necessarily a mass exodus of students going back to regular school at semesters or quarters. It's all based on the need of the student. And so the reminder when they could transfer back will be done when they decide to make that decision and then meet with the school to communicate their needs, and then they will let them know when is the next period to enroll at the physical campus.
Okay, next question is, how many classes will my 8th grade student have, 6 or 7?
They'll have, and I can't even remember right now because my brain is a little fried. Whatever they have at the regular middle school program, that's what they will have in the virtual school. So I don't want to say 6 or 7, 6 and 7. It will be whatever is the standard for middle school, and the same thing for high school. I think high school is 7 classes. Middle school, I don't want to say it's 6 or 7 because I'm not sure, but it's whatever is the standard for middle school.
Okay. Liliana stated, I would like to know what support the students with special ed education will have, if there will be support groups to help students develop their social skills.
That's a good question. That is going to be something that special education programming, the special education department will have to build out, and we will support that within our school. But at this point in time, the program has not yet been developed. And so once we know how many students will be that are special education, we will work with special education department to provide instruction that would be appropriate for the students.
Okay, so I have 3 hands raised right now. The first hand, it looks like it's Pebble, P-E-B-B-L. If you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this may be a little too futuristic, but let's say I enroll my child into the virtual. Will you guys on campus still be doing any kinds of like plays or trips or activities or, things of that nature that will still allow my child to participate? Or no, because we are completely virtual and we're not part of his classroom?
That's a good question. And so what we've been kind of thinking about is how do we, because parents are putting their children in the virtual school because they don't necessarily, but for lots of different reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is build programming, like extracurricular activities that will be virtual. So looking at like virtual, like esports, there might be a virtual field trip where they might go to museum and it's online. And so we're exploring that. There are some things like athletics, especially at the high school, that we will not be able to provide at the virtual school. So students will go to their home school to participate in athletics. And we anticipate too that there might be theater productions and, musical concerts and things of that nature that students will want to participate in, especially like if they've been in band, for the last 2 years or 3 years and they want to be part of the orchestra. So we'll work with that. Our principals really want them to be back at school. And so we just have to kind of make provisions. It's kind of, we want to make sure that we're keeping your children safe. And, we know that the desire is to keep it virtual. But we know that we have different varieties of virtual. And so we will work with you to determine how we can support your child. But the relationship with the home school is still strong. And, we anticipate your child wanting to go back to regular school. So we want to make sure that that's a healthy transition and they still feel part of that home campus.
Okay, the next hand raised is Kathleen Valdez. Go ahead, Kathleen, and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sorry, me again. So right now we have like school item pickups periodically. We'll go to the school and we'll pick up books or, like in the beginning of the year, they gave us like a little baggie with like different stuff for the kids. And I really like the books that we would get, like the textbooks, the consumables, and even like the little, with one of my kids' classes, they've been reading chapter books. So periodically we would have like a drop-off pickup and we would drop off her chapter book and get a new one. And then they'd read that together. And the same thing with my son, they get their little books that they read in their classes. Is there going to be something like that with the virtual academy where we can get consumables for the kids, coloring pages or things where they're actually writing on paper and cutting, which is important for little ones in kinder, first, second, and third grade. Are they going to be getting things like that? We're going to having like where we can go somewhere and pick things up, or is it completely virtual with nothing?
It's a great question. So we anticipate that kids who are going to be part of the option 1, where they have daily live interaction with the teacher, are going to need materials from the teacher. And so there will be consumable items, textbooks, coloring pages, things like that, that will be provided to students. And we either do that through kind of a drive-through situation or appointment pickups. And so that will continue. We also want to make sure that kids have any textbooks that they may need. as well as computers, because they're going to need a computer to be able to access all of the digital curriculum. So that will be something that will be provided. We have 3 options within the virtual academy. So option 1 being daily live instruction with the teacher. And so you will, just like you are doing now, and kids have materials, you will receive that as well. Then option 2, totally online. And then option 3, where they actually physically come in to talk with and meet with the teacher at least once a week. So they will still have a lot of interaction with adults and counselors, and it will be dependent on the selection or the option that the family chooses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next question or hand raised is the Galaxy Tab A8. Go ahead and unmute yourself, please. Galaxy Tab A8, go ahead.
Si tiene el nombre de Galaxy Tab, por favor, prenda el micrófono. Para su pregunta. We'll just go to the next hand.
Okay, the next raised hand is from Rahaja. Go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is more pertaining to my student who will be entering into 9th grade. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. My student will be entering into 9th grade next year, and her biggest concern will be the IB. I know you don't offer the IB classes, but I'm trying to maybe see if maybe you can get her to understand that she can still take those classes in 10th grade and still get those college credits for when she's ready to graduate, that she doesn't have to jump on it right now in 9th grade, that she won't be affected, unless I'm wrong. So I don't.
Yeah, great question. So I was one of those students when I went to Cajon way back when. I was not in IB classes in the 9th grade, but I did enter them in the 10th grade. So it is possible. Of course, we would like for students to be in programs, they're full time that they're in school, but it is possible for students to go in the 10th grade to an IB course. There is a lot of extra work in an IB course as compared to, a regular college prep course. Best case scenario would be that the student go in the 9th grade to IB courses and then continue in the 10th grade. But I mean, it is possible for a student to go into the 10th grade in IB classes. So it's really, a family decision. You might want to check to see if virtual is for you, and then try it out for, a month, your first quarter. And, if you like it, then stay. And if you don't, then, sooner than later, get into that program at the homeschool so that she can stay on part with her peers and won't get behind. Those classes are very challenging and extremely rigorous. And so there might be extra reading, especially in the English class, that's not offered in a regular college prep class. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rodriguez. That's even the second part is my next question. You just answered it, because I was wondering about letting her do a little bit, and if it's more, make more sense for her to go to her homeschool. We are just being really careful because no one in my family, immediate family, has been sick, but we have lost 8 family members to the COVID. And I just don't want to risk that. But if we can keep it where, she can start getting those in 9th grade, like you said, but what I'm understanding is it's best to do it now while she's in 9th grade. So maybe we should just start off a month virtually and see if things wear down a little bit more. And then she's already enrolled in Cajon also, right? So she won't lose her spot. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so, yeah, that would be the best case scenario. Let's say you try it out and it works, or let's say you try it out and you notice that the rates are like like 0 now, and there's more children getting vaccinated. Right now, high schoolers can get vaccinated. And so, just kind of monitoring the situation, and then make that transition back. If it was my child, and we're just outside of COVID, because that's a whole nother ball of wax right there, especially considering how much loss you've had in your family. That's something that, you got to be super careful, because you just don't know. So we get that. But if it was not a COVID situation, it would be best for them to start an IB in the 9th grade.
I agree. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have a few more questions in the chat. The first one is, my son's IEP evaluation is coming up. I was informed by his current speech therapist at Thompson Elementary to find out who the SLP at the virtual academy is. How can I obtain this information?
So the SLP, the speech and language pathologist, has not yet been determined for the virtual school. Students who are receiving speech will continue to receive speech. And so we don't know who that person's going to be yet. HR is working on staffing, but those services will continue to be offered.
Dr. Rodriguez, I also answered privately, and on there, I just let them know that they could text us, and then we would have someone from special ed respond to their question as well, and just provide additional support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the Vicki Lee question, I did put my email in the chat. If he emails me, I can get that information to Miss Vicki Lee.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is, once a child with special needs is enrolled via the ARIES parent portal, who or when will someone reach out to let them know the child was accepted into the program?
Great. So within, we're going to be looking at the numbers on June 7th. So after the window closes, we'll be able to know who actually selected the virtual academy. And then the new principal and vice principal will go through that list and start making contacts with those families to let them know of their intake appointment, as well as explaining the program a little further. So that will be within the next month or so.
Okay. The next question is, will there be a material pickup like we did at the in-person schools? If so, where will the virtual academy material pickup take place?
So yes, there will be material pickup, just like you did this year, depending on the program that your student offers. The virtual academy, we actually have a physical location for the Alternative Learning Center. And so that information, once it's determined when we're going to be doing that, they'll let you know. Because we don't want to disturb schools, they may do a virtual academy distribution or drive-through at one of our district locations. It could also be at the district office or our professional development center, or it could be at our WA building. So that just kind of depends on, where we might have concentrations of students. And so once we know closer to who will be there, the principal and vice principal will let you know when and where materials can get picked up.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Galaxy Tab has their hand raised again. Galaxy Tab, go ahead and unmute if you can to ask your question. Si está en el nombre Galaxy Tab, puede prender su micrófono para hacer su pregunta. Okay, I'm just going to continue with the questions in the chat, and then we can come back and check in. Oh, maybe it was an accident. What is your number to call? I think they're referring to for the virtual academy.
I'll put my number in the chat.
Perfect, thank you.
Galaxy Tab, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Está preguntando otra persona, ¿no?
¿Sí quiere hacer su pregunta? Aquí tenemos un intérprete. Ok.
Ok, ¿me escucha?
Sí.
Oh, sí, gracias. Es que no lo encontraba aquí el micrófono.
Es que
tengo
I
algunas
didn't find the
preguntas.
microphone. Ok, yo soy el intérprete, yo puedo interpretar lo que está diciendo.
Oh, muchas gracias. Mire, vamos directo a la pregunta. Como es algo nuevo y yo necesito saber algunas cosas porque mi niño va para 4º año.
So this is
Entonces,
something new and I need to get some information because my child will be in the 4th grade.
ajá. Y yo quiero saber si estoy correcto en lo que estoy haciendo.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm correct in what I'm doing.
Yo lo que hice fui a la cuenta de Aries y escogí en escuela virtual que vas primero lo que es información del alumno y ya ahí hay una escuela virtual que se hace por medio de Independent Student, creo. Decía ahí y escogí la 1 que es K, TK hasta la número 8, ¿no?
Okay.
Es la
Yeah, I
número
just wanted
1.
to make sure that I was correct in what I was doing. I went to the portal, Aries parent portal, and I selected Virtual Academy, and the first one was TK, through 8.
¿Esto es lo único que se tiene que hacer para hacer la inscripción a la academia virtual? ¿Es lo único o tengo que hacer algo más?
Is this the only thing I have to do to be able to have my child enrolled in Virtual Academy?
Por el momento sí. Lo único que se necesita hacer en este momento es escoger en el Aries Parent Portal que usted está interesada en las clases virtual, y ya cuando cierre la ventana donde la gente puede escoger su decisión o su opción, vamos a empezar a llamar a los padres para hacer una cita para evaluar si ese programa es lo mejor para su estudiante. Pero sí hizo muy bien. Muchas gracias. So yes, that's all she needed to do was go to the Aries Parent Portal and make that selection. We're waiting until after the window closes so that we can get our final numbers, and then we'll be reaching out to the families by phone to do the intake appointment to determine the final option or the program that is best for their student.
Ok. Tengo otra pregunta más. Si en ese paso ya lo hice, ahora, me dice usted que hay alguien que se va a comunicar por teléfono o por email con nosotros, porque esa persona es el maestro, porque esa es la pregunta, ¿cuándo vamos a recibir una notificación que cuándo van a hacer las clases del niño, el programa, que si va a tener PE, música, todo relacionado a la clase y el maestro, como para cuando nosotros tenemos información de eso?
So she wanted to know specifically, will the person reach out by phone or by email? And when will we know about what classes the student will be enrolled in, the name of the teacher, if they'll be in PE or in band or music? And so that's the question. El director o la directora le va a llamar por teléfono, también les mandará un correo electrónico para comunicar con los padres. Si eso es necesario para continuar el proceso, para hacer el trámite, para involucrar el niño en la escuela. Ya cuando tiene esa junta con el director, le pueden decir la maestra o más información tocante de cómo le va su educación para su alumno. So once the window closes, we'll make those phone calls and send emails to give the information pertinent to their student.
Muy bien. La otra pregunta es de que la preocupación es que la escuela me dice, ella está en la escuela que tengo que entregar la computadora el día 3, creo, ¿sí? Y entonces digo yo, entonces, ¿qué computadora va a usar él? ¿Y dónde va a recoger los materiales? ¿Cómo vamos a recoger materiales? ¿Qué computadora va a usar él? ¿Continúa con la computadora? ¿O qué tenemos que hacer respecto a eso? Porque pues no tenemos esa información y creo que es bien importante saber eso, porque no nos queremos quedar sin el curso del niño.
Yeah, very important. So she's saying that the schools have been asking for the return of the computers that the students have been using, and so she wants to know, is that something that's going to be happening? Because if they go to the virtual school, they're going to need computers and materials, and so that's the question, and the answer is that students who are going to be in the virtual academy will have a district provided computer. District will be providing the computer, will be providing a hotspot, just like we did this school year. And so once we know that your student has gone through the process with the intake, we'll make sure that the student has everything that they need in order to participate in the virtual program. El distrito escolar le va a dar su computadora o materiales que son necesarios para su alumno para participar en las clases virtuales. Así no se preocupe por la computadora, su estudiante tendrá uno cuando empiece la escuela si va a continuar en las clases virtuales.
Ok, entonces tengo que entregar la computadora mañana, la tengo que entregar.
Sí, pero les van a dar otra.
¿El mismo día?
No, cuando empieza, antes que empieza la escuela de las clases virtuales, le van a dar su computadora propia.
Muy bien. ¿Hay un local donde se recogen las cosas o esto es solamente porque me llega por correo? Y nunca puedo ir a un local donde, no sé, por ejemplo, ahí en el distrito escolar, aquí por la F, no sé, no van a tener un lugar donde uno pueda recoger y llevar cosas, ¿no?
Yes, so she's asking, where will they actually pick up the materials? Will it be at a school? Will it be at a district office? When will they get it? Esas preguntas son buenas. Todavía no sabemos dónde. Ahorita tenemos más de 700 alumnos que están que han demostrado interés en ir a las clases virtuales. Pero tenemos que juntarnos con cada alumno. Así ya en el mes les van a dar información tocante de eso, pero tiene que ser paciente, porque las clases empiezan en agosto y vamos a tener que juntar con cada alumno y darle las cosas que son necesarias para cuando empiezan la escuela. Pero con paciencia todo se arregla, ¿verdad? Pero sí vamos a dar a su alumno lo que es necesario para participar en el programa.
Ok, entonces lo que yo tendría que esperar es un aviso de ustedes. La llamada vendría del distrito, digo, para reconocer el número o me enviaría un email o cualquiera de las dos cosas, ¿verdad?
I just said that, we have to be a little patient. We will have to be making, as of right now, we have over 700 students who have showed interest in the virtual academy. And so our administrators and team will have to meet with every single one of those kids. And so to decide and talk with the parents about the responsibilities that are going to be required to participate in the virtual academy. But we rest assured that your students will have what they need when they start, and that will be a computer, any textbooks, and a hotspot for them to participate in the virtual program.
Okay, thank you. We do have another raised hand, Amanda Armendariz. You want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
Hi, my question is, I know the cutoff date is June 6th. If we happen to need our children to start virtual before school starts, are we able to do that?
So we we are here for kids. That's our number one priority. We need to meet the needs of kids. And so that June 6th date is for us to preliminarily know what our numbers are going to be for staffing. Now, we know that there are special circumstances that happen in life. And so, we will evaluate those situations case by case. If a family needs to enter into the virtual academy, we know that, getting sick or change of jobs, those are unexpected. And so we don't want to have a very black and white rule that says, no, we will not, because we need to meet the needs of children. And so those requests will be evaluated as they come in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Rodriguez, should we continue with the chat?
So we do want to respect everyone's time. So it's 7:05. So the actual presentation is complete. We will stay on to answer questions, but the actual presentation is now over. Should you choose to stay on and ask additional questions, feel free to do that. The team will stay on for another 10 minutes or so to answer questions. And then again, you can always ask your questions via the text. We will get back to you within a day or so if you give us your information, because we don't want to keep you any longer. We know that you have a lot of things to do. And so we want to be able to honor your time, but we will stay on for another 10 minutes till 7:15 to answer any questions that are in the chat. And we thank you for your time today. And we appreciate your patience as we worked out, some of these concerns. We will be announcing the principal and vice principal for the campus in the next couple of days so that our families know who to contact should they need additional support. So for those who are deciding to go ahead and exit the meeting, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your input. One of the great things that we have in our district is that we try to be responsive to the needs of kids. We have to put kids first, and so we've heard you. And so a lot of these adjustments have been from the concerns that have been raised by our families, and so we appreciate that, and we look forward to serving you. And we look forward more than anything for your kids to come back to school. We're really excited about that. So thank you so much. For those that need to leave, thank you, and we'll stay on until 7:15 to answer further questions. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so the next question is, will students be given new Chromebooks?
They will be given a Chromebook. Whether that Chromebook is new or not, I don't know, but they will have a device for them to be able to utilize in the virtual academy.
Okay, and the next question is, do current Chromebooks need to be returned to in-person school, and are they given a new Chromebook for virtual?
So my understanding is they're trying to take an inventory of the computers that have been out, and they're also want to update them. Some of the computers are older, some of them, they're called legacy devices. And so they want to make sure that devices are in working order and that we can account for the devices that are out there. So please follow the directions of your school should they be asking for you to return the device. Once your student goes through intake, they will be offered a new device. New as in brand new, I don't know, but they will be offered a device or provided a device and a hotspot for their use as they continue in the virtual academy.
Thank you. We have Kathleen Valdez with her hand raised. Kathleen, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question, please.
Right now, like we get remind updates through the kids' schools. Would there be a remind updates for virtual academy as well, so we can be up to date as to everything that's going on, all the cool things or new things that they're going to be doing?
Yes, we will be providing updates. The district is working on a single platform, kind of a one-stop shop, so that information can get disseminated. And so since the virtual academy is its own school, we will be providing that information just like any other campus.
Thank you. Our next question is for second graders. what is their online school hours, and what are the subjects that will be covered in Virtual Academy?
So for a second grader, all subjects, just like now, are being will be provided in the Virtual Academy. For a second grader, I believe it's 3 hours of actual in-person, or I'm sorry, online instruction. We will be working on the actual time frame of when, do they start at 8 o'clock, do they start at 9 o'clock? So that will be worked out and will be provided to you upon the intake of your student.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the process to return from Virtual Academy mid-school year or first quarter back to the enrolled school site?
So students are not automatically returned back to their original school site. The parent needs to request that the student return back to their home school. And so you'll make an appointment with the administrators to express your intention to have your student transition back, and then they will let you know when would be the best time to transition them back to that school. They will not automatically go in. The Virtual Academy, the way it's set up, is open for the entire school year. We do expect that kids are going to be coming in and out, and so that is an individual situation. So it's not going to be a mass exodus first quarter, second quarter, or semester. It's as the family needs to return back to the school.
So Dr. Rodriguez, I can also speak to that a little bit in the fact that we'll be working with our ALC team and out of Enrollment and Placement Services, and we will know when the student is to be dropped from ALC, and we'll ensure that the student is picked up at their projected school for 2021 in their program. And so that should take no longer than 2 to 3 days, if that. But we want to make sure none of our scholars fall through the cracks.
Thank you, Mr. Buckner. Our next question is, how long is the process if we wanted to switch from virtual to in-person? Is it right away?
It depends. If you make that decision within that first week of school, we could probably do it right away. If you're choosing to go back and it's already like a month and a half in, we're going to recommend that the student return back at the next grading period, which would be at the end of that quarter. But we will work with you if it's something that is, a unique situation, because we know those things come up. But it should be quick depending on when you ask.
Okay. Our next question is, when will we be returning materials to the school if we decide to do it online?
Returning materials to the home school is determined by the school itself. So just work with your campus, contact the school, and they'll let you know when you should return the materials.
Okay, we have, what if I choose virtual now, but change my mind closer to the first day of school? Will my student still be allowed to return in person on August 2nd if we decide that's best? Or how long would they have to wait to transition from virtual to in-person?
If you're going to make that decision prior to August 2nd, we ask that you let us know as soon as possible, so that we can make those changes in our data system. You shouldn't have to wait very long if you let us know. You can contact Mr. Buckner or the principal or vice principal of the virtual school, and they'll help you with that. We would love for them to start school just like everybody else. If that's the decision that you've made, we would do our best to honor that.
Okay, we have a hand raised.
Ms. Marissa, go ahead and unmute so you can ask your question.
Yes, thank you. Hi, good evening. We would like to know why isn't distance learning offered to students that are in the accelerated program? Our daughter Morgan goes to North Park Elementary and is currently with Mrs. Dawson for second grade. She'll be in third grade this next school year. So we just wanted to know how come there hasn't been any accommodations for her accelerated program.
So there might be accelerated programs throughout the district, and so we need to determine what the enrollment is going to be for our students. So if we see that there is a bundle of students who could take advantage of that, we will do our best to offer it. But please understand that those special programs, those teachers themselves have gone through some type of special training, and not everybody has that. And so as we're hiring new teachers and getting them placed in the virtual school, they may not have that special training. And so it's not necessarily that we don't want to accommodate them. We just may not have the available resources to be able to offer that program at the virtual school.
Okay, thank you. Do we have to re-enroll our students back in person if I decide not to go back?
Okay, so it's 7:15. We'll go ahead and answer that question. And then we do have a list here of all of the questions so that we can get back to you. If you have a question, please text us, and then we will be able to return the call. So can you repeat the question, Kathleen?
Yes. Sorry, I lost it. Do we have to re-enroll our students back in person if I decide to go back?
So I can answer that, Dr. Rodriguez. You are already enrolled in our district at this time. So if you decide that you want to go back, change from virtual academy to in-person learning at your projected school, you will have to provide updated phone contact information, updated address, just so that we can verify that you still live within those boundaries of the school, and also if you're at a school because you were there for a program, then you'll update your phone contact and just general information so that the school will be able to get a hold of you in case of an emergency or things along those lines. But we will not have you go back onto Aries Online Enrollment and re-enroll and submit every single document. You're already in our system, so we want to make it as seamless as possible.
So we want to make sure that we're honoring your time. We know that we didn't get to every single question, but can we put back there it is, the callback number. You can text us your information and questions, and then we will return that call within the next day or so. But we want to make sure that we honor your time. We went a little over, and we want to be able to provide you with the information that you need. So with that being said, your students will maintain their place at their home school. That's a new change. Your student will receive 3 hours of live instruction should they choose option 1. And the window for selection has been extended to June the 6th. So we thank you for your time today. We will do our best to provide everything that we can, but we have to make sure that we do things well. We will announce the new principal and vice principal for the campus within the next 2 days. We'll be on our website, and we look forward to working with you. And as always, we're excited that your students are going to be coming back to school, whether it's in virtual or in person. We're excited to see them, and we look forward to a great school year. Thank you, everybody. Good night.